Hi everyone, and back again with another absurd video. This time it's going to be a poker hand that I watched this morning from the Hustler Casino Live. Now then, I am a bit of a poker player. I play in a league locally, and I have won a few tournaments locally too. Does that make me a good player? No. I wouldn't even class myself as a good player. I'm just an average, everyday player. But I do understand the dynamics of poker, and I understand when I see something absurd, and this is absurd. So I have to walk you through this because it's not my typical video, but when it's absurd and it's this absurd, it definitely needs talking about. So let's get into this. So the cards get folded around to Garrett, who has 7-8 of clubs, and he decides to bump it up. He's gonna put a little raise in there, and he's gonna push it up to $3,000. And Robbie behind with Jack 4 offsuit decides to call him. And the flop comes out, a very interesting flop. It is 10, 10, 9, two clubs, and Garrett now has an open-ended straight flush draw. An incredibly good flop for Garrett. Now then, if the hand stopped right here and right now, Garrett would actually lose. If they used the 5 cards that are on the table, the 2 in the hands, the 3 on the table, and they made a hand out of it, Robbie would actually win with a Jack high card. That would be the winning hand. But Garrett has so many options. He has a flush, he has a straight, he has a straight flush draw. And he also has 2 live cards with a 7 and an 8. So any of these cards, if they was to come off, if there were clubs to come off, a Jack, a 6, a 7 or an 8, then Garrett would win the hand. So what he's doing now is he's going to make a bet to try and increase the amount of money that's in the pot so that if he does turn one of those great hands, he can then cash in. He can get a lot more money from his draw-heavy hand. And at this point, if Robbie had an ace or ace-king or a pair of jacks or something like that, and Garrett's going to make the play, then Robbie should at least see a turn because he would be betting any flop anyway, because that's what most players do, especially Garrett. Garrett barrels quite a lot, and he's a very heavy betting player too, so he doesn't fear putting a lot of money in, often on stone bluffs. So often when he raises at this point, more often than not, if he does hit his hand, he's going to get paid off. And because he's barreling, and it's against Robbie, who more often plays a little more scared poker, folds a lot of hands to Garrett. Garrett's basically been owning her quite a lot recently. It's quite likely that Robbie is probably just going to fold at this point to the first bet on the flop. But let's see what happens. So Garrett obviously makes the continuation bet. He puts 2,500 out. Robbie, she doesn't believe. She still believes that she has a chance to win the hand. And she's doing that for a number of reasons. She believes that Garrett doesn't have a pair in his hand. And she's quite correct. And she's thinking that she has live cards with the Jack and the 4. And she was willing to call off 2,500 in the chance that she maybe hit a Jack or a 4, or maybe a club came out, which would give her the option to have runner, and back her into a flush. Now, when she's missed, which she clearly has here, the hand should be over. On the turn, we now have 2 10s, a 9 and a 3. We have 2 flush draws out there. Robbie only has Jack high. She has no backdoor flush. She has no straight possibilities. She doesn't beat aces, kings, no matter what comes out. She doesn't beat queens. She doesn't beat a 10. There is nothing out there for her to continue on if Garrett is going to make a bet. On the other side of the coin, Garrett is thinking to himself, I am behind right now. This is in his mind. He's thinking, I'm behind right now. I'm maybe behind to ace king, ace queen, ace jack, something like that. Is a possibility he could be behind to pocket 8s, pocket 7s, things like that. So he needs to bluff, and he knows this. So even though he has outs, a lot of outs, he's still at this moment in time, he's had one chance, he's had one bite at the apple to hit hit his draw. He didn't get it. So now when he bets, he's actually bluffing. And at this point, Robbie should really fold. But let's see what happens. So Garrett looks down and he grabs $10,000, which is almost a pot-sized bet. Kind of polarizing, really. And Robbie's thinking to herself, well, why would he be doing that? Why would he be pot-sizing it at this moment in time? And she's looking down and she's thinking, I'm gonna try the min click back. I'm gonna bump it back up to 20,000. So that's exactly what she does. Now, this can often tell of a very strong hand, or it can be a way of stopping your opponent betting heavy on the river. So she's min clicked him back in order to find out where he is in the hand, because often it will stop people in the tracks, get them thinking, does she have a 10 in the hand right now? Or does she have a pair of 8s, pair of jacks, something like that that's acting a little bit scared, but still you don't know where you are. Now in Garrett's position, with ace high or a flush draw, normally you would expect with that min click back that you should just call it and see how the river goes. However, from Robbie's perspective, she's also thinking, well, if he now moves in, at least I found out for 10,000 more that he has a very good hand, rather than wait to the river when he tries to shove 50,000 at me, because by me min clicking now, he's less likely to bet openly on the river. He's more likely to check to see what I do, in which case I'll check back. So I've got a cheap showdown at showdown. And there's a lot of things going on right now, a lot of leveling going off right here. And what we're going to see is Garrett is just going to rip it in. He's not afraid to bluff, and he's not afraid. He also knows that even if he's behind, he still has outs. He can hit a club, he could hit a 6, he could hit a jack. So he knows he has outs, even if his play, which in his mind is a semi-bluff, gets called. So if she calls, she has him dominated right now, he still has outs. So he's still live no matter what he does. And he's going to rip it in. He's going to put it to the test. He's going to say, well, if you've got it, you've got it. And if you haven't, you haven't. Let's see. And Robbie makes the call with a jack high. And I don't understand it. Because let's suppose that he is bluffing. What hands are you beating? Even his bluff range you are losing to. And his bluff range could include ace-king, ace-queen, pocket 6s, pocket 7s, pocket 6s, pocket 5s, things like that. His bluff range is far better than the jack 4 offsuit. Robbie can't improve. She can't hit a straight. She can't hit a flush. And she has cards that are blocking any of Garrett's bluff range. For instance, if Garrett was bluffing with a flush draw on the flop, he could have been bluffing with jack king of clubs, jack ace of clubs, but she blocks that because she's holding the jack. So it's unlikely that he's bluffing with a flush draw, even though he is. When the heart comes on the turn, it's unlikely that he was betting the flop to actually fall into a river heart flush, because she's holding a heart in her hand too. So he's not actually bluffing at this point when he rips it in her mind, or shouldn't be at least. So what hands does he have? Well, any kings, queens, king, queen, jack, king, ace, queen, all of those beat Robbie's hand regardless. Any pocket pair, he could have a 10, and she's drawing stone dead, a 9, in which case then Robbie would only have 3 outs with the jack. And there are so many cards that even if Garrett was bluffing right now, she loses to. So the only hand that makes sense from her perspective is Garrett's exact holding, which is 7-8 of clubs. And how do you come to that conclusion? How are you going to risk your entire stack, over $100,000, on a soul read that you know that Garrett has 7-8 of clubs. And yet, even if you put him on that exact hand, 7-8 of clubs, you are still 53% chance to lose and only 47% chance to win. So even if the best possible outcome that Garrett could have in his hand is 7-8 of clubs, you are still losing. Regardless, you are still a mathematical favourite to lose the hand. And that is just on the known cards. This is the statistics for the known cards. If you factor in the bluff hands that he could have that the statistics don't take account for, the jack queens, the king queen, the ace king, the ace queen, all of those cards that he could have, that statistic from her perspective without knowing the hand has to be close to 95%. And this is the best possible hand that Garrett could have, that she could possibly call with, where she's still behind. It makes no sense. And this is why it's so absurd. So let's see Garrett's face when all this comes to fruition. Garrett's ripped it in. $129,000. Robbie only has around about 20,000 invested in this hand, thereabouts 25,000. That's all that she had invested in the hand originally. So she now has to put 130,000 in to get this kind of call. And at best, she's losing. At worst, she's losing 95% of the time. And yet she doesn't believe him. She doesn't believe him, but even if she was right, she would be wrong to call. Because even his bluff range is still so far ahead of the holding that she has, which is just a jack high. It's absolutely insane what we're going to see here. And I'll tell you the title of the video: The Most Insane Hero Call in Poker History. And it absolutely is. I mean, if you guys want to go and watch this, you'd have to see it yourself to see how it all transpired. And the commentary that happened afterwards, where she's saying that basically she'd had enough of being pushed around, that he did this all the time and she was putting her foot down. But this is the wrong time to put your foot down. You don't put your foot down with Jack 4 of hearts. You might put your foot down with an ace king or something like that, or a pair of eights or a pair of sevens. You might put your foot down there. Not with Jack 4. You wouldn't make your statement there. I mean, you shouldn't have been in the hand with Jack 4 offsuit anyway. Let's be quite clear. You should never have called with that pre-flop anyway. They should have just been thrown in the muck. But to actually consider calling an all-in with no cards, no hand, for $130,000, and yet she does. She makes the call. So let's just move this forward a little bit. Garrett knows he's been caught here a little bit, but in his entire life, he never expects that she is going to have the cards that she has when they get turned over. So the river comes out a 9, so that gives 2 pair to Robbie, 9s and 10s with the jack kicker, as opposed to Garrett, who had just the 8 kicker. And Garrett pretty much knows that he's lost this one. They haven't turned the cards over yet, so he doesn't know the holding, and they're not telling each other what they have. They both believe they're losing right now. And the river card is going to be an ace. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So that's ace, pair of 10s. Robbie's jack plays, as opposed to Garrett's 8, and then the last card would be a 9. And watch Garrett's face here. I mean, he cannot believe it. And I don't blame him for not believing it whatsoever. I couldn't believe it either. And I don't know. I mean, this is absolutely insane. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of proper poker commentators out there that are going to do this far better justice than I have. However, I just wanted to put it out there as a poker player myself. that it absolutely made no sense. Even if you knew he was bluffing, you are behind every bluff range that Garrett has, unless you specifically put him on 7-8 of clubs, in which case you are still behind. Oh, anyway, I thought I would share this with you guys. I'll leave the link to the original video in the description. Garrett's face is just an absolute picture. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.